And because nobody in London would, want to teach me how to do color grading, because these people were like, so full of themselves, like, especially these film colorists. And I wasn't really interested very much in TV because I felt like it wasn't really a lot of creative stuff going there. I thought like, well, the only way for me to learn how to do it was to go to LA. And so I did a course that taught me just the technical stuff, how to operate equipment. But it was really cool because there I met people who showed me this new software that came out that didn't need all this expensive hardware like Da Vinci would need. And it was called Final Touch, and you could run it on a Mac. And I had a friend in the UK called Lewis, who used to work for company Jigsaw, who, helped me build this Frankenstein super duper Mac systems. And so I thought like, okay, with him, I could build a DI system on a Mac platform using this software. And that was my plan. But I didn't know anything about it, and that was my biggest problem, so what I did is I by accident, really, like, somehow, coincidences, the way how it happened, I got an opportunity to learn from a senior colorist who back then was like 60 something years old. But it was absolutely wonderful person, little hippie kind of California style, which I really loved, really a little spiritual. So it wasn't really teaching me color grading like a technical, more like color grading from, human point, from perceptual point, what really color grading does. And so I worked for free for him for as long as my visa allowed me to do so, and that was really my foundation. That was really where this love for color grading was born. It was like something, that somebody told you, hey, there is this treasure trove, there is this thing, and nobody knows about it. Everybody thinks it's kind of correcting image, but actually it is about us telling story. It is like a music, it's like a soundtrack for, but in color. So that was kind of this kind of analogy, and how we through color help connect audience with a story, help tell story, help them feel emotions. And that was for me like absolutely fascinating. I love music. I come from music, and that connection, understanding. And I have a synesthesia, so for me there was always like a kind of this thing. Oh yes, I hear the color, right? I see the sounds. I was able to really relate to it very well, and it came to me very naturally. And so I came back to London. I remortgaged my house even, and bought the first system built some kind of, first grading system with Lewis, and I had a DI system. And my first customer was still shooting fully on film. We used an independent laboratory to do all the processing and scanning, and my first two movies were analog, were shot on film. And I used just, service companies to do all the scanning and printing. And, but as I said, like, I was really interested in digital. That was really what I, felt like this is the future. This is what we should be doing. A lot of commercials, some of them won awards because, this is what digital cameras were able to, people were using digital cameras at the beginning really creatively. They were doing everything that they couldn't do with film camera. So for example, I worked on this commercial for T-Mobile that was shot at 7 p.m. on Liverpool Street, and the next evening was already on air. Like there was news about it, and after the news, they had a commercial about it. Beautifully shot back then already with SI2K. Then a Slumdog Millionaire came as well. Then I did a lot of Phantom, like a lot of Phantom, and also we won an award for that Nike commercial. There was like in the break of FIFA where all the big, footballers were playing against each other in super slow motion. A lot of beauty and a lot of commercials like that were using that. The BMW also was using digital cameras. So it was really, really like a super interesting job, super interesting creatives, that were using it. And mainly commercials. But then I got the call from a producer of Guy Ritchie. And Guy Ritchie was shooting Sherlock Holmes. And there was one boxing scene inside, and he wanted to have this kind of slow motion, but Robert Downey Jr. being hit in super slow motion. And yeah, what you're going to do is you're going to be a phantom. But then they told me, well, it's not just that we're going to shoot on phantom. You have to match this phantom to our film. Everything else was shot on film. Super underexposed, super dark. And so that was not just for me like a first time to do digital cameras, but also to match digital cameras to film. And you have to understand, back then there wasn't any rule books, there wasn't any somebody who could teach you. You could maybe ask people. And luckily I had some friends, who worked in Germany for Fraunhofer, and knew much more about color and color science than I did, and somehow would build these Excel sheets really, and used color charts and tried to match. It was like unbelievable. I can't believe we made it.